Thanks, Gwen, for your introduction. And now, starting with this session, we have Matt Peterson from Amazon and Jason Thompson, the CFO of Redwood Materials. So, as a quick introduction, Matt Peterson has worked for Amazon for over a decade as a director of the Amazon, and now is a director of the Amazon Climate Pledge Fund, set up in 2020 with $2 billion to invest in startups helping reduce carbon emissions. Jason Thompson is part of Redwood Materials as CFO. Redwood Materials is a red-hot startup founded by J.B. Straubel, the co-founder and former CTO of Tesla, and is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries that are now so ubiquitous. The company raised over $800 million at a reported valuation of $3.8 billion, and investors include Amazon, Ford, as well as traditional institutional and venture funds. Jason, Matt, great to have you.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank
you.
To
be here.
So maybe getting started with a quick question to Matt. So Amazon has invested in and acquired startups for years. Actually, was looking at a count of startups. You guys acquired over 100 companies, and you're probably quite a bit part of that, being a former corp dev at Amazon. So why set up this particular new fund?
No, great question, Ben, and thank you for having me here. So it really comes back to when Amazon announced the Climate Pledge, which was an initiative to be net zero carbon by the year 2040. And we announced that back in September of 2019. And as part of that, we quickly began to realize that in order to get to net zero by 2040, many of the technologies, products, and services that we'll need as a company to do that have not yet been invented, have not yet been commercialized, or definitely not been scaled to the needs that Amazon has. So as part of that effort for the Climate Pledge, we really thought that there needs to be additional help and additional backing by an investment arm, which became the Climate Pledge Fund, to support the development of these technologies, with the idea that if we can get in there early and we can make investments wisely in companies that have great potential, like Rivian, like Redwood, like many of the other ones we've invested in, we can get ahead of where we need to be, such that we can take advantage of the products and services that they're making to help us on our goal of getting to net zero by 2040. And not only us, but we have a coalition now of well over 200 other companies as part of the Climate Pledge that are also going to need those technologies and services too. So in essence, by us supporting them in early stages, we're trying to get them available not only to Amazon, but many other companies with the same goal. So that's really the essence of kind of where it came from. It is an investment program, so it is part of corporate development. It's my background is in M&A and investing, but it really is tightly coupled with our efforts around sustainability and the Climate Pledge.
Yeah, actually, maybe to give a bit of perspective, the Paris Agreement is a pledge toward 2050. So the Climate Pledge initiated by Amazon is 10 years ahead of that. So it's pretty aggressive, and particularly for a company that has very complex operations like Amazon that spans not just IT and data centers, but things like warehouses, delivery vehicles, planes, and also you produce your own products. Everybody's familiar with the Kindle, the Echo. You also have your own brands of products with Amazon Basics on basically complex supply chains. So it looks very complicated to actually reach net zero. And what have been the initiatives that mattered the most so far?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, if you look at Amazon's businesses, we really resemble the world at large. I mean, we have transportation, we have data centers, we have IT services, we have producing our own devices. We make movies. There are many. We have a fleet of airplanes. I mean, there are things that Amazon has to do to get to net zero that the rest of the world has to get to as well, or has to accomplish as well. And so far, we've made good progress in a lot of sustainability initiatives. We've committed to being 100% renewable in our energy consumption by 2025. We are right now the largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy with over 10 gigawatts of capacity already purchased. We're trying to lead the way when it comes to transportation with electrifying our last mile fleet with Rivian vans and other providers to really decarbonize the last mile. And on aviation too, we've purchased sustainable aviation fuel for our needs. Some of the investments we've made so far really focus on decarbonizing the aviation sector or portion of our transportation. So there's a lot that we're doing now, but it's early days. I mean, we have 2040 for a reason, in that there's a lot to do, and we have to really move a lot of large operations to get there. But the Climate Pledge and the Climate Pledge Fund and many other aspects of Amazon are working hard at that.
Okay, actually, that leads me to a question to Jason, because so the founder of Redwood Materials, J.B. Straubel, could have probably founded almost any company he wanted. So, what made him decide to focus on battery recycling and materials related to that?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ben. So, as you know, JB Straubel was the co-founder of Tesla. He was previously the CTO there as well, and played a very critical role in the establishment of what is today becoming a robust EV industry. So, as part of that experience, he had a front row seat to some of the critical challenges that the EV industry faces, whether that is dealing with end-of-life EV battery challenges. So answering the question, what happens to these batteries at the end of their life? Also to dealing with potential supply shortages of critical materials. So having that experience and that knowledge really drove him to think about how to solve that, which leads to Redwood. So he started the company focused on building a circular supply chain to address these challenges and to help enable enhanced adoption of electric vehicles. We think that by making them more sustainable, by leveraging recycling and extracting the valuable materials out of the batteries, end-of-life EV batteries, as well as consumer products and production scrap, and two, by driving down the cost of producing those batteries, will ultimately lead to greater adoption of EVs, which helps enable what we believe the future of transportation will be, which is fully electric.
So that's really interesting what you're saying regarding like the cost, because people sometimes focus on the technology, on the promise of the technology, but to scale something really to the scale it should reach to solve planetary sized problems, you need to hit the right cost as well. And I read that J.B. Straubel said that he hopes that within 10 years, recycling will basically lower the price of raw materials for lithium-ion batteries to about half of the cost of extracting new material. And so do you see that type of a cost curve, like reaching that and continuing into the future?
Yeah, so recycling is a very important part of our goals to help enable a more cost-efficient battery supply chain. In addition to recycling as a replacement, at least in the near term, to subsidize tertiary mined material. Eventually, the goal would be to displace it, but in the near term, recycling is one critical component. And then, in addition to that, would be localizing significant links of the complex, what is today a very complex and lengthy supply chain that drives a substantial amount of cost into the system. And then lastly, the vertical integration of the recycling operations and the battery material production, we believe enables us to drive synergies and better cost efficiencies in that battery material production supply chain as well.
Mm-hmm. So, Matt, is that actually the rationale with which you decided to invest in Redwood Materials? Like, what attracted you in this company and this technology and investment?
Yeah, no, Jason described it really well. And JB's vision around sort of the future of batteries, both from a recycling and manufacturing perspective, really resonated with us. Amazon, as I mentioned before, with our investment in Rivian, we've also ordered 100,000 electric vehicles to be on the road by 2030. And with those 100,000 electric vehicles, you're going to have a lot of batteries and lithium-ion batteries that are going to be put to use, and at some point will have to be disposed of or repurposed in some way. And so the thought of going with a partner like Redwood that's able to take those batteries and reconstitute them into core components and do it in a closed loop fashion. One of the things that's really interesting when we were talking to Redwood early on is they had, as part of one of their slides, a map of the world. And you could see in that map sort of the supply chain of batteries. You have cobalt from the Congo, you have lithium from Argentina, you have nickel from Russia, and everything has to go in this elaborate supply chain, which then gets assembled and then shipped and then back. And to think that you could do this, what Redwood was doing, without having to go through all that and repurpose in a closed loop way all of those materials such that you can make a lower carbon battery, fits exactly with what we're looking for with the Climate Pledge Fund. And then with our commitment to EVs and electrification in general, they're a perfect partner, and the visions are very much aligned.
What's really interesting about what you describe is that it provides some kind of technology or materials independence to companies, but even at the scale of countries, it could have really a strategic importance as well. So it's kind of above the pay grade of a VC, but that's probably some conversations are happening at country level.
Yeah, I mean, you can only imagine just the difficulties of trying to source all these materials worldwide. Every country has their own political situation, and it gets difficult. And to do it all within one country and do it in a circular economy focused way is great.
So, Jason, again, without going into too many technical details, because I know you focus more on the finance side, could you provide some idea about what's the big problem with lithium-ion batteries on their recycling?
Yeah, so it is complex. It requires a series of different types of recycling activities and capabilities to fully extract lithium at very high recovery rates. Right now, we're recovering greater than 95%, or on average around 95% of the materials that we recycle, and we leverage a variety of different means to recycle those and refine those materials. So it is quite complex and requires a significant degree of chemical engineering expertise and know-how, and does afford us the opportunity to develop some IP that we can then share and deploy into our partners and customers like Amazon.
So, actually, one more question around your customers and partners. You recently announced a partnership with Ford Motor for the electric vehicles. So, coming from Tesla, it's interesting that instead of servicing one unique client, now you can potentially work with a lot of companies across the board. So what does this initial partnership entail with Ford? And are you planning to work with all car makers or other types of clients?
Yeah, so you're right. We had a recent announcement about a month ago of our partnership with Ford, which we are thrilled to be partnering with Ford. Frankly, it's been great to see many of the OEMs make bold and ambitious announcements regarding their plans to transition their fleet. But we see Ford as one of the industry leaders there in their commitment to making that transition. So great opportunity for us to partner with them. And what that entails, what's really exciting for us, as I mentioned earlier, our goal is to create a circular closed loop supply chain. So the ability to partner with Ford to take in production scrap on the front end and recycle that production scrap, extract those valuable materials, revitalize them, then consume them within anode copper foil and cathode active material products that we then send right back into the Ford supply chain. So creating that perfect closed loop, we believe, is an elegant solution to this challenge. And we certainly are looking forward to working with other auto OEMs and cell producers on developing a similar solution along that same model.
Okay, that's really interesting. Also, to think that actually, when I saw the investment of Amazon into Redwood, initially I started thinking, what is Amazon going to make cars? So what's the thinking behind your investment? Is it so? You mentioned Rivian. That's another startup you invested in doing electric trucks and delivery vehicles. Is the idea to combine some of the portfolio companies, or do you also have like some plans you might be able to mention or not? About products, so maybe it's not just applications to large size batteries, but also like to smaller devices.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, there are many ways to work together. I think the long-term vision is with the Rivian delivery vans and other electric vehicles, because that is sizable batteries, and then that's a huge supply, but that's going to be rolling out over the next 10 years. Right now, we're working with Redwood in various ways with AWS, with some of our robotics components, and starting a relationship that I think is right now going to just grow over time. Electrification isn't just around vehicles. It really is a transformative process that affects all aspects of your business. And data centers are a huge area, just our operations facilities. And as you dive into electrification, batteries just become that much more important. So having a partner like Redwood is only going to be more valuable to us over time from where we are today. And so it's an investment for the future as much as for the present.
Okay. Question for Jason around how did the initial contact with Amazon happen? Because I think a lot of founders in the audience would be curious to know how do you approach like such a large company, and how do you pass through the filters where and successfully raise funding from them? Because I think at the moment the Amazon fund funded 9 companies and has a few more in the pipeline. So Jason, if you can share some of your experience with that.
Yeah, I think Matt touched on it earlier, just through the normal course of evaluating the various companies out there with intriguing and exciting technologies and bringing to bear to market ways to help Amazon achieve their net zero goals. And that's one of the things that we are tremendously excited about, the partnership, the investment from Amazon, as well as the commercial partnership that we are developing with Amazon. Matt mentioned it a moment ago in terms of just the complexity and the breadth of the larger Amazon ecosystem, and the various lithium-ion batteries that they have within their system, whether it's, as he mentioned, the data centers, whether it's in the consumer products or the trucks, the electric trucks that he just talked about. Leveraging our diverse set of recycling capabilities, and then working very closely with the Amazon team to develop transformational solutions to help enable Amazon achieve that net zero goal is really, really exciting for us, and our team gets really excited about that initiative. Yeah.
And just to add to that too, I mean, when we first met the team, it was a world-class team. I mean, JB is a visionary in the space. His pedigree speaks for itself. And then when you're looking for a company to invest in, I mean, what else could we want? There's the vision, there's the team, there's the connection with the climate pledge. Everything aligned very well, and it made it a pretty easy decision to want to pursue it.
For other startups who might be the audience and thinking about presenting projects to Amazon, what kind of stage, what kind of technologies are you looking into?
Yeah, so the Climate Pledge Fund is very flexible in that we can do small investments as well as later stage growth investments too. So we can invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in some startups, and in the case of Rivian, well over $1 billion. So we don't have restrictions with Series A, Series B, et cetera. So what we try to focus on are areas, generally 6 areas of focus. We have transportation and logistics, we have energy, we have buildings, we have circular economy, materials, and food and agriculture. And what we're trying to find for any of them is sort of what is the connection with an investment we make relative to helping Amazon and other companies reduce our carbon footprint, and sort of how can that fit together with sort of our goals. And so, as we're looking at companies and evaluating them, we really want to find companies that have a real product vision and a product vision that intersects with our own. So, as I think you're describing before, what is a really good determinant of a good investment? Is this product the company is going to make, is it something that a company like Amazon would find interesting? And that's something that we can help with by investing. We can help invest early in an earlier stage company and maybe give guidance and assistance to help develop products that could be used by us or others of our partners. Or if they're more later stage companies, they could be already ready to go sooner than that. So in essence, we're trying to figure out sort of what are the real near-term solutions that we can employ, and if that's not near-term, then how do we have that sort of merge of our interests in the future?
So the Amazon Climate Pledge Fund is a relatively new entrant. It's basically a year old in the climate tech category. Are you looking at working with other investors? What are you trying to develop around Amazon in terms of partnerships and collaborations?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest things I think we have to offer is that we are very complementary to traditional venture investing. If you look at like Redwood, for example, we partnered with great firms like Breakthrough Energy and Capricorn during our first round. But then since then, maybe it was because of our involvement or helping be getting exposure. But you look at the list of investors who have come on since, with T. Rowe Price and Ford and many others, Bailey Gifford, who are coming in afterwards. And the same thing happened with Rivian. We were the first investor institutionally in Rivian. And then since then, a lot of the same cast of characters. You have T. Rowe Price, and you have Cotu, and you have Soros, and many others have come in as a result of that. So we see ourselves as adding very unique value, very specific kind of how can Amazon and using the scale of Amazon help make the company successful, and then adding to that a lot of the other skill sets that VCs bring with respect to governance, with respect to growth, with respect to really helping build the team. And it's a great pairing, I think, and it's very complementary. And we love to work with great firms like Breakthrough Energies, AP Ventures on the hydrogen side, and I'm one of the ones I just named. So we try to add our own brand of value to the equation.
So I hope that the audience we have hundreds of investors that are very interested in climate tech in the audience, and I hope you'll get to work with many of them, and that now they know that it's a real possibility and also real added value to work with a player like Amazon that can also finance pilots and early scaling. Which actually leads me to a question for both of you, but starting with Jason. So in SaaS and in biotech, companies have quite mature playbooks in terms of technical milestones, funding sources, and general metrics. And one of our friends, Azim Ajar, author of the popular tech newsletter Exponential View, asked, he was supposed to be today with us, but he's with us in spirit, is there a playbook emerging for climate tech companies? And have you seen that developing actually at Redwood Materials?
Yeah, I don't know if there's kind of a universal playbook for climate tech companies for a couple of reasons. One of which, I think climate tech is now, a larger term used to describe a number of different companies, right? So it's becoming a robust and diverse set of companies. So applying a universal playbook, I don't know if there is one. I would say, the way that we think about it is there's equal benefit and focus, both from an environmental and sustainability standpoint. That is critical to who we are. It's fundamental. It's in our DNA. But at the same time, everything that we do has to be oriented towards driving favorable economic outcomes. We believe that the latter helps enable the former, and it creates this kind of virtuous cycle. So if there is a playbook, I would say that the focus should be on both driving the sustainability and environmental goals to address climate change, but at the same time ensuring that your model makes economic sense.
And thanks, Jason. Matt, what has been your learnings over the first year of operating the fund on the variety of companies you invested in and seen in terms of this development of a playbook around climate tech?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've really come to appreciate is that if you look at kind of where the climate tech investing landscape was 10 years ago, there was a lot of excitement around new technologies and a big opportunity in terms of just a big problem to address and a lot of investment dollars coming in. But I think people lost sight of the fact that you need a product. A technology is not going to be enough, and you need something that appeals to the end customer, whether it be a company like Amazon, whether it be a consumer living in their home who wants to be more sustainable in their daily life. You really can't just build it and they will come. You kind of have to design it in a way that appeals to the end user. And what we've discovered with our investing so far is we're trying to help identify that alongside the companies, and with Amazon as a proxy. And again, as I think it mentioned before, if it works for Amazon, it probably works for a lot of other companies of similar or smaller size. And so kind of really designing kind of where your product is going to be and who is it for is super important. And you can't lose sight of that, even if there's a lot of excitement around the technology behind it.
Okay. So to wrap up this conversation, what are your thoughts on the evolution of the ecosystem since you started the fund, started the company, and also as an observer more generally of climate tech in terms of the funding environment or potential remaining gaps, starting with Jason?
Yeah, I think the funding environment has improved significantly for companies like us and others that Matt has talked about in terms of their investments. A couple of drivers, there's been a lot of companies in the climate tech space over the past several years that have been very, very successful in executing successful business models, and that naturally will drive capital into those ideas and into the space. In addition, I have significant experience in working with institutional investors, and one of the things that's been, great to see is the allocation of capital from those large institutional investors into climate tech, and then raising additional capital and funds that are dedicated on in making those investments. So those are probably the two bigger drivers that we've seen, and certainly, we are excited about seeing that continue in the future.
Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's as exciting a time to be in climate tech, I think, as there ever has been. Jeff Bezos likes to say that oftentimes when looking into the future, don't ask yourself what is going to change, but ask yourself what's not going to change. And what's not going to change is that addressing our climate crisis is going to be a huge priority for not just companies like Amazon, but everybody around the world. And unfortunately, it's a problem, but that we have to spend a lot of resources and put a lot of effort behind to try to solve. But it's also an opportunity for new technologies and new ways of doing things. So there are tremendous tailwinds to the sector as a result of that. And so from an investment perspective, there's a lot that we can look to, a lot of exciting technology, a lot of great companies that we've only scratched the surface of so far. So that's, I think, where we can take it going forward.
Wonderful. Well, on this very optimistic note, and actually realistic note, because we see that happening at every level of the ecosystem, I thank you very much for both your insights, and we go back to our host at the SOSV Climate Tech Summit.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, everybody.
Really appreciate it.